which administers international English tests like TOEIC, TOEFL, and you also have taught Vietnamese students for a long time. So today we have some questions that will need your expertise. So would you please help us?
I'll do what I can.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, no problem.
Thank you. So let's start with our first question. The first question comes from Ms. Jung, a sophomore at FTU. I have some trouble in starting new words. I can learn a long list of words by heart very quickly. However, I honestly can't remember them for a long time. So the problem is, how can I remember them for a long time?
Well, I guess the first response is that if you can't remember them, then you really haven't learned them.
Yeah.
So you can't say that you memorize lists of words. In fact, that's probably the most least effective way of really acquiring vocabulary. Long word lists don't work. Simply because they're just a bunch of words. And you can memorize them for a short period of time, so they stay in short-term memory, but they're not liable to be recalled, or you're not liable to remember them, simply because your brain hasn't made a connection. It hasn't really stored them strongly.
Yeah.
And the only way that happens is if you, instead of learning a list of words, you come across one or two words, and then you make a deliberate attempt to understand that word.
Okay.
Look it up. Make sure you have a good meaning for it. Don't translate it. Look for another word in English that means the same thing.
Yeah.
And the most important part, of course, would be to make sure that you use that word. In English, we say use it or lose it, and we really mean that.
Yeah.
So they've got to be able to use the word. They've got to be able to use it in conversation a couple of times. Next time they have an opportunity to write an email, use it in the email.
Yeah.
This kind of thing. So as long as you're doing it and using it when you can, you only have to do that a few times. And it's just going to be a lot easier to recall. You probably won't really forget it. So I think that's the main trick, is basically trying to use the words and not memorizing word lists, which, as the lady was saying, after a period of time, it's not there. You can't remember them. And if you can't remember them, frankly, you haven't learned it.
Okay, so we should use a new word over and over again after it, and then try to find a similar meaning word and then connect it to a specific situation, and then you can remember it for a longer time. Is that right?
Well, that's pretty well accurate. Yeah, I don't think that you have to overuse the word.
Yeah.
All right. If you keep on overusing it, it sounds phony and it sounds forced, because a lot of students somehow get onto a new word, and it's like an ice cream. It becomes the flavor of the week or the flavor of the month, and they're always using the same word, which is artificial. No, I think the main thing is use it a few times in different ways, in speaking and perhaps in writing, and then kind of let it go. I think there's too much focus on memorizing. I have to memorize, repeat, and that doesn't necessarily work. It doesn't, because it's not natural. So use any new word that you can in a natural situation when you can use it, without overusing it, and it will stay there. So we were talking before, like what happens in a classroom. In the classroom is that you get a situation where the teacher has come across and you've got a new word.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking about this last week, where the word was superfluous.
Superfluous.
Well, superfluous is a lovely big word, and it sounds really impressive and is academic. And so what the person has to do is, if they learn what superfluous means at the beginning of the class, and then the teacher gives them a review at the end of the class, they probably remember what superfluous means.
Okay.
However, a week later, when they're given a review quiz and somebody says it's superfluous, the student is liable to think, well, what? Ooh, don't get it, all right, because they just didn't get it. And it's a word that is somewhat difficult to bring into casual conversation because it's such an academic word. All right, so that's the other part. Sometimes there are academic words that are very difficult to drag into conversations. So in that case, if it's a super academic word, maybe the best way is to find ways in which it can be written.
Yeah.
You know, use it in a sentence. And of course, you all know what, because we talked about this, you remember what superfluous is.
I think it is too much, like not necessarily be there, like that, right?
Yeah. Excessive, unwanted, unnecessary.
Yeah.
All right, so it's even redundant, you know,
Yeah.
just using a similar phrase that means the same thing.
I-
Yeah, so that's the basic idea.
Yeah.
Don't memorize word lists,
Yeah.
okay, because it's just not effective.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.